Okay, here's an odd one. Hopefully, y'all know Sargon of Akkad over here. He's the one on the right. And the thing on the left is an orc. Now, this is in one of the D&D games. I don't think it's a Warhammer. Warhammer looks a little different, and they usually have a nose ring. But orcs trend on Twitter. And so I clicked on it to see what it was. And what it seems to be is people in D&D. Let me just read the thing. An SJW warrior read the 5th edition D&D handbook entry for the orc race and felt that it was an offensive description of black people. Cue tens of thousands of SJWs flooding Twitter and their hot takes on orcs to show everyone how not racist they are by showing you that they play orcs sometimes and all these things and stuff, and it's fun to play orcs and all these things. They have campaigns where they're trying to kill off the villagers and take their village and all this type of things and stuff. But the description it gives is pretty. It's pretty descriptive, and if you were trying to think along those lines, you could do something, but you'd have to leave a lot of things out, like green and pointy ears and big muscly versus lanky, perhaps maybe tall, but they're short black people, and they're not all black. They're not all basketball players, people. That's the rarity in any situation. But other things about them are telltale. There's where it says that they don't build civilizations, that what they do is they come in and ransack a village, and then even though it's destroyed, they try to live in that and move on as they keep destroying their village. And while they've got a village, they're going to fight amongst themselves and just destroy them, right? And that's one way to play them, and that's not even like the only way to play them, because there's many facets to each way you play certain things. Whenever I play that D&D game that I do, there are orcs in it, and it is what's happening with what they say. They came in da-da-da, and they're being controlled by a dark overlord and so on and stuff, but and they ruin this whole fishing village and take it over and cause a big problem, but we get them under control. But he goes off, on talking points and how it's, this is from old mythology and all of that, and it seriously is. And I should go to you these talking points, because eventually some black guy chimes in and he's mad, and real shortly you realize that he's mad that they don't have something representing black people in the game. And then somebody right below him posts the description or something of it, and then he gets all pissed off. It's like, weren't you reading the thing in the first place? And what, or is this just a baity person? I don't know. It almost looked like that because it just walked right into it like, well, da da da, and it's like, anyhow. So, but all these people are, I like orcs and stuff. It's just disgusting. These people that are trying to, of course, virtue singling. So let's look at orcs here. This is something I was going to go into with my D&D studies deal, but I thought that a lot of it might be boring to some of you people and stuff, because it's Dungeons and Dragons, and so that's not necessarily everybody's cup of tea. And so this is one depiction of what an orc looked like. In our world, they had like a nose ring like this a lot of times, but usually this one would be the commander or something like that, and the other ones wouldn't even have a nose ring yet. He's got a lip ring too, so he's done some little damage here. I wouldn't call him a captain or blah 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 off of it, but they start off pretty much naked, and then as they destroy villages and stuff, they steal everybody's stuff, and even though it doesn't really fit them, they try to put it on and adapt it to them, so they end up being just this hoity-toity lot that it doesn't do. And they've got green eyes too, so this is almost a Hulk kind of thing, and it's just somebody that, hey, just in play, they have a -2 to their intelligence, but they have a -2 to their strength. They don't use magic in any way and are kind of scared of it, and don't use certain weapons. They usually use big battle axes or clubs and things along that nature because they don't understand all the weapons that they're looking at. Let's go through the other pictures here. This is written in Old English. We'll talk about that in a minute. Here's another variation of it. Talks about goblins and stuff like that, and if you look at the depiction of goblins, that's kind of telling a little bit too. And the variations, I guess we'll get into that afterwards, but this is an orc, and just a sketching of it and stuff. And so he's kept a skull of somebody and really doesn't have much clothes yet and everything, and this is common. He may pull some trinkets because they like shiny things, and you go off of things like that. So look, D&D has unicorns in it and all kinds of other stuff, but it's based on like the devil and everything. You get the Warhammer, and then you can get orcs that are all loaded up, and now they've got weapons. And now what are you going to do? And everybody says, oh, that's racist as hell. And it's like, they're green. Oh, what color? Oh, that's an old joke anyhow. What dark green ones in the front and light green ones in the back? And it's like, stop it. Stop putting yourself in that situation. But, I mean, that's a Warhammer right there. Now it's World of Warcraft, but, so big blade, huge guy, good armor, ain't got much sense. And that's the way they're really played, along that line. But there's things that come all the way from Tolkien and Lord of the Rings and so on. So let's just look at this real quick here. An orc is a fictional humanoid creature, aka akin to a goblin. Orcs were brought into modern usage by the fantasy writings of J.R.R. Tolkien, especially Lord of the Rings. But that's brought into modern usage. He got it from other tellings of old stuff, and that's what I was going to go into, and we'll see if we can't knock up a couple of birds with one stone. In Tolkien's works, orcs are a brutish, aggressive, ugly, and malevolent race, contrasting with the benevolent elves, and serving an evil power, though they share a human sense of morality. His description of them has been criticized as character-like, even racist by some commentators. So even this, I mean, Wiki is saying that, it's racist, or whatever, but they're not Chinese people. They can tell them that because they're big, so they're, they're green, huh? You almost get that, and it's a fantasy creature, like a troll and things like that, but there's more to trolls than meet the eye. And are all these things just black racist things? No. Let's go ahead. But he says his description of them has been character-like, even considered racist by some commentators. Those others have noted that he was clearly anti-racist by intention. And they're a pseudo-humanoid creature. The problem being, I guess, is whenever you get into it, that they can breed with humans, and you can end up being a half-orc. And half-orcs have this -2 intelligence, +2 strength in that game that I play. So if you're going to be like the big sword-wielding guy, that works great for them. Because I use the archer and everything, it seems to be dex that really helps them out, dexterity and stuff. That gives them more crit severity and all this other stuff, blah, 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 right? So, but you can find all of this stuff in fact, the oldish English poem, which used to be like the oldest poem there was. As I was going through high school, the teacher was still telling me this is the oldest poem that there was and stuff off of it. And coming out of my senior year, I found out, well, then I got this Sumerian thing and an epic there but anyhow, orcs can be found Old English poems like Beowulf, and in early modern poetry, and in European folk tales, and even fairy tales, and the fairy tales and what they have to do with. And who are the fairies? And why are they called fairies? Tolkien's concept of orcs have been adapted and imported into fantasy fiction, other authors into role-playing and strategy games such as Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer, and Warcraft. Right, so basically, it comes down to what people pull information from to get things from. Let me see if I can get this right. How about if I do that and then I try to do that? Sorry, I must have bumped it. So it's where people draw things from. And I told you we were going to talk about hell because Bible's not hell. I mean, it's Gehenna and so on. And then we have Hades listed a couple of times in there because that's the Greek influence that's on it. But the Greeks had Hades and their god for it and everything that had to do with Pluto, right? And you're going to see that Pluto thing blend all the way into this concept here as I explain it to you. But I've talked about, you know, the hierarchy of hell and Orcus and all these things, and this might have some explanation and some pulling together what orcs are and Orcus. Old English, the Latin, Orcus is glossed as orc, orcies, or ode hell diafall. So this is a male, well, instead of dia, it's dio, fall, which is a goblin, a specter, or a hell devil. And you wonder where we get hell from. It's from H-E-L, not H-E-L-L. And you wonder where Hellenes and things comes from, and it goes to a time way early, like I've told you about long ago, and we still keep touching upon it, and now we're touching another string in that web and going back. But it's a hell devil. But now let me explain. Devil is not what you think it is. Dio, I guess, is going to be a god. But foal has the same idea as foil and things like that in it, and it's going to be a lesser, an offspring of, or so on, right? So now you get this concept that these are creatures from hell. If you just put that concept together loosely, and people have taken that and ran with it. In the 10th century Old English Cleopatra glossary, about which Thomas wrote, Orcus was the name for Pluto. So, and Pluto is before Hades, and really a benevolent god in death, and they go in Elysian fields and all that stuff. Pluto's really not that. It's not the hell of you either burn or you know. It's a different thing. The god of the infernal regions. Hence, we can easily understand the explanation for hell diafall. And so now you have a deal with a guy with a pitchfork, and the concept that's here. And somebody pulled this hell devil thing, and people had the ideas of this before, and so. So I'm going to show one. So this is a person with wings on it, but now so now this is a person with wings on it, and this is like a succubus and a vampire, if you will. But now instead of having the wings of a bird and an angel, they have the wings of a night creature, as in yin and yang. And so a famous, incredible night creature that has precision, that is much like the precision of a hawk or an eagle, is the bat. And so they have bat wings on them for at night time, and that's not bad. It was turned bad by the church because of all the paganism and all of it, but you can see that it's still there. In fact, it's all still here. In fact, we talk about hell and devils and all this stuff, and that's all pagan, people. That's a whole little idea, and that they've got a yin and yang thing, that's a whole thing. And because Hasatan just means the adversary of them, and right now the adversary of these people would be the people that wrote that first Bible, as I talked about before. And they say themselves, as I put out in the thing, and the Templars had found this before, and they were like, what? and it's part of the Germanic knowledge that was pulled out and used by certain people that has caused a real problem in people finding out this information that everybody was on the edge of. And all of a sudden, no, you can't say that word anymore that starts with an A and ends with an Aryan, Orion, Aryan. Oh, you can't say that. And Proto-Indo-Europeans try to say that. It's like we don't say Cro-Magnon anymore. We just say early European hunter-gatherers. Funny thing is, they're pretty much non-prognostic. So, whoa. So, Wordenbork, Netherlands, Taal, defines orc as the closely related Old Dutch as a verseland monster or a devouring monster, and points at possible origin to Nork, or petulant, crabbed, or evil person, or that Nork works with him, right? And you'd almost use it like calling somebody an asshole now, but no, it's a little more descriptive than that. It says, thence evil broods were born, ogres and elves and evil spirits, the giants also, who long time fought with God, from which he gave them their reward. And a lot of people say they're talking about the giants and stuff, but they're talking about that giant edge of Cro-Magnon man that was running around. Even though Cro-Magnon averages up around 6 foot, we have found 6'5", 7 foot tall people, and people talk about giant skeletons all over that had happened from it, off of some other possible union that wasn't supposed to happen. But that's for another video. In the Orkney Islands, Orkneys has traveled evil spirits above, but its meaning is uncertain. I have to tell you a little story. It's some crap some guy pulled out in England and everything, and what was his last name? I used to be able to pull it. And the idea was when people came to like the Orkney Islands and a place like that, that the people turned into dolphins and left. And they said that there was like 2 forms of it. One of them was that they fought the people, and the end of it, they took their boats and they left and became dolphins. And then the other story is that no, they killed all those people, but there were dolphins in the land that used to come right over around near there, which people now think that was probably pilot whales or something, or killer whale types and things along belugas and so on. But they killed them all off in whaling and this little concept. But there's one of those other ones where people like turned into dolphins and stuff, and it's way up near Oregon and stuff. With dolphins, you think they're real tropical and everything, and they'll get up to colder water, but what the hell is that story about? Anyhow, Klaber suggests that it consisted of orc, or El Orcus, and this is the underworld plus near plus neas, which means corpses, which the translation is evil spirits fail to do justice. This is people that went and did something they weren't supposed to do. It is generally supposed to contain an element ni, cognate to Gothic naus, or Old Norse nar, meaning corpse or dead, narwhal. The usual Old English word for corpse is lick, but ni appears in nebbed corpse bed and drithni, dead body of a warrior, where draught is a military unit. So if Orkney is to be glossed over as Orcus corpse, the meaning may be corpse from Orcus, i.e. the underworld or devil, corpse as understood as some sort of walking dead or undead creature. Right? The other concept of this is that they must be coming from the other side, and because they call in this place, and so did Tolkien, Middle Earth, which is what Mediterranean means, ding, then it's somebody on the other side there in the underworld that's fighting back against them. But there's another underworld effect too that goes east-west that can be the other way. For ogres, definitely have to these people to do over there, and Og, and King Og, and all these things. And why wasn't he supposed to be a giant and all these things? So apparently they were led by at least giants. The people weren't, but some of them were, and they killed them all off except for, yeah, it's all in the Bible too a little bit, but it's been twisted around and out of folk tales, and it's just another variation of telling of it. So undead type creatures. A monster called Orcus is mentioned in Edmund Spencer's 1590 Fairy Queen. Oxford English Dictionary records an early period orc meaning ogre type. Samuel Holland's 1956 fairy tale Donzara, a pastiche of a Spanish romances such as Don Quixote, and presumed orca and ogre meant close to the same thing, came into English via continental fairy tales. We've talked a little about fairy tales and who these people were and everything, and the wee folk and all this stuff that happened in Gulliver's Travels years ago, and we're going to roll back through it again as soon as I get something to latch onto like this story and get into it, but this is more different. Let's get on to it. Introducing the literary form of the fairy tale, Gambas de Bastille wrote in the Naples dialect, stating that he was passing on oral folk tales from his region. In the tales, Bastille used huerco, or huerco, which is sounds like a pig, swine, puerco, and the Neapolitan form of Italian orco, which is giant instead, or monster, to describe a large, hairy, tusked, mannish beast who could speak, lived in a dark forest or garden, and might capture and eat humans. Okay? Tolkien began using this English term to denote a race of evil humanoid creatures. His earliest Elvish dictionaries include the entry orc as a monster, ogre, a demon, that type of thing, and that's the way we're supposed to look at it. And they also have ogress. And so, in his Sindarian tales, it's still spelled orc, but with CH instead of a K. So he's even using this dualistic linguistic, it's the same thing that goes on through people. And you'll find that it has Proto-Indo-European connections to it, and that's how he had developed his language, but it's different, kind of, but no, it's a variation on a theme of Old English and Welsh type of stuff in with this Elvish language that he'd come up with. And it's similar names in Middle Earth, right? Uruk in Black speech, and larger shoulder orcs, the language of Druid Gorgon, orc folk, who's in ruins. Anyhow, let's see if we can go. Talking about in Beowulf. Description: orcs are of a human shape and of varying size, so it's not always got to be the dude on roids there. They are depicted as ugly and filthy and have a taste for human flesh. They are fanged, bow-legged, and long-armed. Some have dark skin as if burned. Most are small and avoid daylight. In Isengard, the wizard Saruman had bred large and powerful kinds of orc called the Uruk-hai, who are not afraid of daylight, and they eat meat, including the flesh of men, and may indulge on cannibalism. In the Two Towers, Grishnak, an orc from Mordor, claims the Isengard orcs eat orc flesh. Whether that is true or just spoken in malice is uncertain, but it says an orc flings Pippin stale bread and a strip of raw, dried flesh, kind of like beef jerky, if you will, over the flesh, if he dared not guess what creature it says in the book. So surely they were eating each other. The orcs from Mordor speak the Black speech, a language invented to them by Sauron, who from Isengard speak other tongues to understand each other. They use the common speech, which is known as Western, such as Pippin overheard and he could understand. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this, people. But let's just see this alleged racism that's here and stuff. There was something about Proto-Indo-European, and it talks about roots and stuff there in the language, and I didn't find it in it, but I swear I saw it before, or maybe I clicked on one of the links and it went to it. We'll see coming up. So they say that, there was scholars in English literature, Rogers and Michaels, undertook a note widespread element of late 19th century Western culture was fear and moral decline and degeneration, right, of letting third worlders in. And we're seeing what's happening now with all this mass influx of immigrants and so on like that want to be in our countries. And I think it's flattering, but yet at the same time there comes a point where you have to stop it, or you end up perhaps starting to ruin your own country with the things that you were definitely not like. So there's a point to that. I mean, the original idea was people were going to come and learn and understand and then probably go back and help their own country, but it doesn't appear that any of that is happening too much once they get here. So to look at his ideal and what they talk about that's racist about it is that they have an evil Harad culture that's in the south, right? And Mordor is more over towards the east and slightly south, and it's evil and scheming. Yet Gondor to the west was good, and the Shire was up above that, and it was the homely place. The north was simple folk and everything, and so it's morality compass that's going on here. Yin and yang, you can draw it over this too better than these colors that go on here, right? Definitely. Good and evil, simple and sophisticated. So is that racist? Well, he's saying the people of the South were sophisticated. So he's probably really not doing a comparison, and the people of the North were simple like the Shire folk and the others that lived up in that region. So it was kind of like simple good, evil sophisticated bad, and in D&D you have lawful evil and all these things going on, so you can imagine what was churning down in that corner versus what was really not going on up in this corner. A bunch of farmers up here and a bunch of jealous people wanting some damn cows down here, so things happen. But so in a private letter, Tolkien describes orcs as squat, broad, flat-nosed, sallow skin with wide mouths and slanted eyes. In fact, degraded and repulsed versions of the Europeans, least lovely Mongol types. So it was really supposed to be the Proto-European things, and that's, past the ogres type thing. And God knows why, but they've got to throw this in there. Is this from Tolkien or anything else? No, they're going to throw some racist stereotype thing. And what is this? Well, this is a Chinaman painted black, and then now he just wastes so much material, make you so happy. It's like God, And this is in the wiki thing, so I'm not sure how they got off like this. Once I saw something like that, I was like, what is going on? They're dark-skinned and slant-eyed and so on. Boy, I'm missing that thing, and it's not in here, right? Orcs are a subhuman race led by Morgoth and Sauron, the Dark Lords. And so people seeing that, and they go, look. And then the ones that are bred are smart enough to do stuff and have admix. Now that's just, and it's like, dude, quit. Talk about Frodo and Brood, other authors in the games. Orcs are based on Dungeons and Dragons. Well, I thought they think the interesting thing they should have catch is that orcs, but Orcus, and then who has Orcus that we've talked about and everything, and how that blends in. For he's the stag-headed god and everything that apparently comes back from a time whenever they used to have that giant stag, Saros, in the area in the last ice age. Things still come from that. And then it talks about how the mammoth that they got. Where's man? One of these words I clicked on and went to a connection. Let me see if I can find it. So uh, they found the mammoths, that they use in there. They're just way too big, and these guys are riding the mammoths. And it said in the deal that they were actually dark-skinned like black people, but in the movie that they made not too long ago, that they weren't black-skinned, and that people threw a fit about that and everything. Well, they were never meant to be blacks. They were supposed to be like the Ethiopians, and that gives an explanation too. Let me see here. And so they were supposed to have just been, tanned and scorched, but the guys wore all these turbans and stuff. And, yeah, a Latin word, Orcus. I'm sorry, guys. Hey, maybe I'll chop this little thing out. For the East Elves, the Avari, like Avian, Ari, enslaved, tortured, and bred by Morgoth. The orcs were made out of Avari. Yeah, that's something I wanted to mention there. But Tolkien shows that race mixing is a great sin, and so that's scientific racism, and that it's bad. But Stewart also notes that Tolkien wasn't a racist because he was not about crap in World War I and World War II, and it's like, well, those were all white people anyhow, but whatever. Tick, tick, tick. Man, can I just go back to it? Is it possible that I can go... Oh, that's going to do that. What if I do this? No. That's where we were. Anyhow, guys, and it goes in deeper into it there, but it can show you where that comes from, and then all of a sudden what our mythology was made out of was the ancient beliefs that are really variations on a theme of the exact same thing, but whenever it changed, these were like, no, that's not it. And that's all these people through here. And so now it's been pushed into myth, along with the Proto-Indo-European incoming into the area. That's great. They've even got a page for Pippin. Boy, I thought it was right in there. The tree-bearded ent. That it's bad that he mixed races of orcs and men. And so there's a lot of things that are like racist about it or whatever they're saying. And that's just people in a modern day picking apart and trying to find anything they can. Hell, they're even showing these Chinese statues or Chinese posters from when. It's like, what has that got to do with anything? But, well, I guess a little, but they're going to throw it all in there. Man, I wanted to show you that other page because it has some pictures and things and talks about it. Here. Oh yeah, here's the Haradim, or the Dalks and Sothrons. So if there's, this is the people that were supposed to have been somewhat darker skins, but the immense land south of Gondor and Mordor is the Umbar, these people right here. And Tolkien said that he based the Hadrim on ancient Ethiopians, people of sub-Saharan Africa. Well, hold on, what? He was misunderstanding. Ethiopians, even in, see how he spells this A-E, Ethiopians instead of Ethiopians? And whenever you do so and you look up what the Greeks used to call it, you'll see this map. It's kind of strangely built, but this right here is Middle Earth, Mediterranean, and you can see they don't know sub-Saharan Africa exists below that certain point. And everywhere that's brown there are called Ethiopians. And so you can see them at the end of all these river valleys and stuff. And different places through there. Let's see if I can pull it up close enough where you can see it. And Scythians is part of them. The Celts, the Iberians, the people in here, Amazigh and Berbers, which still have blonde-haired and blue-eyed people over here in this area. The Egyptians. Wow, the Caucasus Mountains, and they're there, all up above the Scythian lands and Russia and stuff too. And then running right through an area in Medes, here it says, and the Medes called themselves Aryans, Herodotus says, and of course the Persians profess themselves to be, and so on. And this is the Aryans that go right above India, which isn't even really showing the bottom part of it either, is it, guys? And this is where all Ethiopians were at, but this is ancient Ethiopians, not the place that's way down here called Ethiopia today, which used to be called Abyssinia. And people try to get that confused all the time if they can. But they were, Peter Jackson's Hadrim were based on the Saracens, and the Saracens are Persian types, right? And so he said but the Hadrim were sub-Saharan Africa, followed this philological research, the Old English word Sigilwara. He deducted that this word referred to some kind of soot black fire demon. Before it was applied to the Ethiopians, he based the Hadrim's use of the war elephants, meantime, and so Haradrim could be like Hadrian, and it sounds like it's a whole lot like the Carthaginians that rode the animals up from more North Africa, right? And using those war elephants. And on Pyrrhus of Epipyrus in his War in Ancient Rome, Greeks have debated whether or not Tolkien was racist in making the protagonist white and the antagonist black, but others have noted that he was strongly anti-racist in real life, opposing any attempt to demonize the enemy in both world wars. But those are all Caucasians. Regardless, in Jackson's film The Two Towers, Hadrim were based on 12th century Saracens, and riding elephants, and the elephants, just like in Tolkien's, were based on something the size of a mammoth. And this shows you a time whenever they're talking about too, whenever these things were going on in Middle Earth, as opposed to a much later time that D&D is pretty much set in. But no, it tries to take it back to the fantasy time, that time before. But in that time, people had great weapons too, and lots of magic and things going on, and magic hadn't left the world yet. And it's amazing, as we peer back farther and farther and right into the last ice age and find Göbekli Tepe, we're finding, yeah, there was a lot more going on. And these giants and these Cro-Magnon people that came out, and all this that changed in a time before time, huh? Elves made the land of people, the South folk. Let's see. And they say that he also talks about hobbits that are in the Sunlands and little people called Swertings. And Aragorn even briefly describes his journey in the land as being Harad, where the stars are strange, and because people were studying the stars and everything, and they would always say that about that, and how it was different whenever they went into, you know, Africa at any amount versus where they were. The stars were spinning at different amounts, and it was strange, and you had to figure out longitude, latitude, stuff like that. So anyhow, I just think it was odd that it came out, and you know, what is it now? We was trolls. That it? Oh, but they try to talk too about it here, and then they end up showing some of the Greek pottery and talking about the Ethiopians. And if you look at them, they're white people, but they're drawn in black, and it's just scratched in, and they've got a dog here and everything and stuff. And it's not, I'm not meant to infer that. Pale women and red ochre men is seen in Egypt all the way through. In fact, the man has a red beard. It's barely showing behind his shield here, but sure enough, that's it. And the curly hair of the Greeks, and so on. And we did one about black symbology in art, because somebody put out some article and said the black people were all over Greece back then and stuff, or some kind of crap, kind of pull that crap. The people of Farad were black-skinned, a group of them described as black men like half trolls with white eyes and red tongues, and troll men. And so that's just racist, right? And this is about to cut, guys, and I shouldn't have done this, but the point, but he's saying the Sigil Wara that he talked about, and they were sun, and this is the ancient sun rune that a lot of people say looks like electricity, but there's a reason for that. And Thor's symbol, and Thor is the Jesus for these people, and these people had one, and these people had one. And hearth brings about things like coal and soot, and Huara, Sagil Huara will be black soot, fire demon, and this is just like Hephaestus for what Aethiops meant, is people like blacksmiths who are Caucasian people, but if you look at them, the blacksmiths, they're going to be soot covered a little bit dark, and it's going to take some scrubbing, and that being out in the sun, they're very tanned. And so that's the description in the first place. In fact, Ethiopian is meant to mean sunburnt faces, and these Caucasians get a sunburn, black people don't get a sunburn, so it was the original appellation at the very first of it. But yeah, he talks about using the elephants of mammoths. So yeah, I'm sure there's a few other things that I wanted to point out, but that's the ones that he used in their pale. That's the ones he used in his for the Hadrian, Gondor, and so on. Anyhow, guys, and I never found where it said that the names of some of it was Proto-Indo-European and matched Proto-Indo-European words, but it's in here, and they do talk about Book of the Maccabees, and a few other versions, and Alph-Centric, and Elves, and we'll get on to that soon. But yeah, Hannibal's use of elephants, the Battle of Zama, and so on, and that's what he was trying to pull off, and that doesn't really involve black people either. So onward we go, guys. Peace.